Well, hello, Simon Raybould here again, and I wanted to just unpack something I've been talking about a little bit in the past to do with whether audiences like you, you're relatable, or whether they trust you, you're authoritative. Now, I used to think, and I still do up to a point, that these two things are a bit mutually exclusive, and there were people over there that audiences liked, and there are people over there who audiences regarded as authority figures, and I blogged recently about the idea that I was too authoritative and I needed to move to be more relatable, and other people were just too nice and they needed to be sort of more authoritative if they wanted their presentations to have any impact. But now I want you to consider, just for the sake of improving your presentations, I want you to consider the idea that those two things are independent of each other. Okay, so you have on one axis down here the audience's perception of how competent and authoritative you are. Not necessarily whether you are, but their perception. And up aside there, you've got the audience's perception of how warm you are, relatable. Okay, so I just renamed them a bit, but basically it's relatableness and authority. Okay. Now, obviously, for the sake of simplicity, that's going to give you 4 quadrants. The first of which is if you're incompetent but warm. So you've got low perceived competence and high perceived warmth. And everybody loves you. They all go, could it? It's a bit like having a Labrador puppy. It's stupid and incontinent, never mind incompetent, but everybody loves it. But it's not really the kind of people you want making presentations. On the other hand, you've got incompetent and cold, so nobody likes you. And what's more, you're just rubbish, so let's just move on from that. It's kind of blindingly obvious you don't want to be there. Incompetent and cold is where most scientists end up because they don't want to tell stories, they don't want to be too personal, and in fact we've seen a lot of this in the current coronavirus pandemic with Chris Whitty and so on being really, really serious and scientific about his presentations, but nobody actually warming to them. Okay. And then up in the top corner there, you've got competent and warm, which is pretty obviously where you want to be. The question is how you get there. Okay, so the way you get there is a really simple question. For each of those two axes separately, I want you to ask yourself this question: what are my hygiene factors and what are my performance factors? Before you do that, I need to tell you what those two things mean. Yeah, okay, right. So a hygiene factor is, it's something that if it's not there, nothing works. But once you've got enough of it, there's no point in having extra of it. On the other hand, performance factors are things that, until you've got your hygiene factors there, are a waste of time. But once you've got your hygiene factors there, starts to be more and more useful. So for example, if you are building a supercar, tyres might be, or wheels I suppose, might be a hygiene factor. 1 wheel is no good, 2 wheels no good, 3 gear wheels no good, 4 wheels, okay, that's your hygiene factor limit hit. If the car doesn't have 4 wheels, it ain't going anywhere. But once it's got 4 wheels, adding a 5th wheel or a 6th wheel or whatever isn't going to make it go any faster. On the other hand, the engine might be a performance factor. Until your car has got 4 wheels, there's no point in having a dirty great engine. On the other hand, once it's got 4 wheels, bigger engines are the way to go. So what you end up with is this kind of matrix for your supercar. And you can just put hygiene factors and performance factors for perceived warmth and perceived authority into that matrix and figure out which ones you need to change. In the case of the car here, you might have engine, suspension, driver skills, all of that kind of stuff. A driver skill is a performance factor. It's not going to make any difference if the car doesn't have wheels. Get it? Okay. Now the things that go in the cells of that matrix, they're not difficult. Honest. The hard part is actually asking yourself these questions in the first place. For each of my perceived warmth, separate from my perceived authority, what are my hygiene and performance factors? Once you've got them into that matrix, ask yourself a question then, which is, how can I up those things that I need to up? How far up do I need to get them? Is there any point in upping them until I've got something else sorted out, or have I got enough of them? But there's a second question, which is, am I going to trade off one for the other? So is it possible that upping a performance factor in your perceived warmth, for example, by being all smiley and telling jokes and stuff, maybe that undermines your perceived authority? So you've also got a follow-up question then of whether you want to trade off. I can't help you with that because this is a video. Tough luck. Chase me up on Twitter, it's @presentations if you like, or LinkedIn, YouTube. Just search for me, Simon Raybould, Presentation Genius, and Bob's your proverbial uncle. Thanks very much. Have fun.